Hi, I'm Edward Carter, the Vicar at St Peter Mancroft Church in Norwich, and I'd like to talk to you today as I sit here on my front doorstep watching the world go by, still in lockdown of course, about a movie that you'll probably have heard of, The Lion King. It's a Disney movie and very well known indeed. It was released in the mid-1990s and was highly acclaimed. As the title suggests, it's a movie about a particular lion. All the characters in the film are animals. It's set really in Africa, I suppose, with different animals, all the different members of the animal kingdom represented as the characters, the people in the film. And the Lion King is a lion called Simba, born to be king. His father, Mufasa, is the king as he's born, and he's presented to all the people, the animals, at his birth by a wise ape, a mandrill called Rafiki. And so he grows up knowing he's going to be king. And unfortunately, disaster strikes when he's, I suppose, a young adult, in that his father, Mufasa, is killed. It's a stampede of some kind, and Simba thinks it's his fault. That's the way it's presented, but in fact it's his wicked uncle Scar who has caused this stampede in league with the hyenas. Anyway, Simba is horrified at what's happened and he runs away, escapes, flees this tragedy, and eventually finds a couple of new friends, Timon and Pumbaa, who are great fun, and he just forgets all that's happened before really, and just says, well, whatever happens, happens. I'm just gonna get on with life and have fun. But there comes then a moment in the film when Rafiki, the wise ape, is able to bring Simba, who's really in his prime, to a pond, a pool, a lake, which is still and reflective. And Simba is shown his own reflection in this lake and looks. And what does he see? As I watch the film, he sees two possibilities. One is to carry on with Timon and Pumbaa, just enjoy life, leaving behind all the responsibilities that he was born to. But the other possibility is that he recognises who he really is. He recognises the true, real Simba, and goes back to take up his life where it should be. And of course, it being a good Disney movie, it's the latter. He does recognise who he really is. He recognises that he is born to be the Lion King, and so he goes back. And the film ends nicely. Here he takes up his proper place as the king, and his wicked uncle Scar is banished. So, why do I show you this DVD and talk about the Lion King today? Not at all because I think this is a parable in any way of the Christian faith. In fact, I don't think I'd ever want to try and argue that at all. It's got this great theme of the circle of life and a sense of reincarnation. There's much that's interesting about that and good, but it's certainly not really, in my mind, connected to any of the truths at the heart of the Christian faith. But the reason why I wanted to talk about this movie with you today was because of that moment in the film, particular moment, because I've paraphrased the film rather a lot, that particular moment when Simba looks into the pool and sees himself and asks that eternal question that perhaps we all ask of ourselves: who am I? Who am I made to be? What's my true calling and path in life? And the film illustrates that really well, really powerfully actually. And it's very precious to me because of one particular sermon that I preached a long time ago now, more than 20 years ago, when I was a curate, just a trainee vicar. It was here in Norwich where I was a curate, and I had a 2-week placement at Norwich Prison. And slightly scary placement, I have to say, but a good one. All these young men, my sort of age, who were locked up, some of them older I suppose as well, locked up because they'd done things that were generally pretty dreadful. and locked up for the safety of the wider community in the hope that they could be rehabilitated somehow. Anyway, I did my 2-week placement, and at the end of the 2 weeks, being a Sunday, I was able to preach for the small service that was held in the chapel, because every prison has a chapel. And a lot of prisoners came to those services. Who knows why, but maybe because it was a chance to get out of their cells and to have a cup of coffee at the end of the service. So the chapel was full, and everyone was very well behaved, of course, because the warders were there watching, and I preached. I decided not to preach about how God sets the prisoners free, the lovely line from Prophet Isaiah, because I thought that could be misunderstood, misinterpreted perhaps in that context. Instead, I used the example of Simba in The Lion King, which was quite recently released at that stage. Everyone would have known it probably. I preached about Simba looking into the pool, asking, "Who am I?" And I preached about it. I suppose it connected with one of the Bible passages, because of course that's what the Christian faith asks of us. Who am I? Who are you? In what way is your life aligned with God? Christians would say we find an identity in Christ Jesus himself. So I preached the sermon, and I thought it went quite well. Had the coffee afterwards as well, and then my placement finished, and actually quite soon after my curacy finished, and we left Norwich as a family. And you can imagine moving house quite tiring and stressful. We packed up the van and off it went, and locked the door for the last time, handed the keys back, and being a bit hungry, went to a local pub just in Norwich, and sat down to get some food. A chap wandered up and said, "Oh, can I take your order, please?" Yes, definitely need some lunch. And he said, "Oh, hang on a minute, are you a vicar?" And I was just dressed in a t-shirt, and pretty grubby as well. No reason why he should have known I was. So I said, "Well, funnily enough, I am actually a member of the clergy, yes." And he said, "Yeah, I thought so. Did you preach a sermon about Simba from Lion King?" And I said, "Well, actually, I did. Yeah, I preached a sermon using Simba from Lion King in Norwich Prison a few months ago." And this chap said, "Yeah, I thought so. I was there. I was in that chapel. I heard you preach, and I changed my life because of that sermon. I decided, yes, I would look in the pool, as it were, and I would reset my life. And now I'm out, and I've got this job, and things are going well." Anyway, I was so startled, I didn't know really what to say, and anyway, had to have lunch, and off we went. But it was lovely. That was the very last thing that happened as we left Norwich, and it's always stuck with me. And I don't know what's become of that young man, what his life holds now, but I do give thanks that The Lion King made for a good sermon illustration. I should say, by the way, that very, very few of my sermons, if any others, have had an impact that I know about that's been quite as strong as that. I'm sure many of my sermons have been entirely forgettable and just sort of drifted away. But that sermon did hit the spot with that young man. That illustration from The Lion King, Simba, and his identity, it did hit the spot. And for that I give thanks, because a life changed is a glorious thing. And to know that for Christians, life in a sense is about our identity, who we are, how our lives are shaped. And that really is foundational to how we do live our lives, and how we flourish. Because what the Christian faith really teaches is that when we find truly who we are under God, in Christ, well then we really will flourish, because we'll be in the right place, the right time, doing the right thing. Everything will come together, and that's a great blessing, one that's a fantastic gift from God, and that we should look for and accept when it comes our way.